They called him a coward. They mocked him, punched him, and left him bleeding in the dirt. But when the world was burning and men were dying, he ran into the fire, not with a rifle, but with faith, courage, and bare hands. This is the true story of the man who went to war without a gun. The man who saved 75 souls on the hellish cliffs of Okinawa. The man the world now calls Corporal Desmond Doss. Born in Lynchburg, Virginia in 1919, Desmond Thomas Doss was just another skinny kid with a soft voice and a stubborn heart. But inside him burned something most men never understand, a conviction so strong that not even bullets could break it. When World War II erupted, young men lined up with rifles and rage, but Desmond carried a Bible instead. He believed killing was wrong, yet he couldn't stand by while others bled for freedom. So he volunteered, not as a fighter, but as a combat medic. His weapon wasn't steel, it was faith and first aid. The army didn't know what to do with him. An unarmed soldier? A man who refused to even touch a weapon? They called him coward. But in truth, he was the bravest man among them all. In boot camp, Fort Jackson, South Carolina, hell came early. While others fired rifles, Doss stood apart, hands clasped behind his back, eyes steady on the horizon. His sergeant screamed. His comrades mocked. He was beaten in the barracks, cursed in the chow hall, and nearly court-martialed for his beliefs. But Desmond never bent. He said only this: "While everyone else is taking life, I'll be saving it." That one line turned laughter into silence. The officers realized they weren't looking at weakness. They were staring at unbreakable conviction. When his unit was finally deployed to the Pacific, few wanted him by their side. But by the time the Battle of Okinawa was over, every man would be praying to have Desmond Doss watching their back. April 1945. Okinawa, the last great stand before Japan itself. A jagged ridge known as Hacksaw Ridge loomed like a wall of death. The air smelled of blood and burnt gunpowder. American troops had to climb ropes up a sheer cliff under enemy fire. Machine guns tore the air. Mortars exploded like thunder. Men were shredded before they even reached the top. But amidst the chaos, one man knelt, not to fire, but to pray. Desmond Doss crawled into the inferno unarmed, carrying only his medical bag, his Bible, and an unshakable faith in God. Every explosion lit up his face, calm, focused, fearless. Bullets screamed past him as he dragged wounded soldiers from the front lines. When everyone else retreated, Desmond stayed. He looked at the carnage and whispered to heaven, "Lord, help me get one more." And he did. Then another, and another, and another. All night long, Doss moved through smoke and screams. No rifle, no helmet light, just courage and prayer. Crawled through mud, soaked in blood, dragging the broken, the burned, the barely alive. He used ropes and a litter he built from scraps to lower each man down the cliff, one by one. 75 men in total. Every time he saved one, he whispered again, "Lord, help me get one more." The Japanese could have shot him 100 times, but somehow every bullet missed. Some called it luck, others called it divine protection. When dawn broke, the ridge was quiet. And at the bottom, surrounded by the men he had saved, Desmond Doss collapsed, utterly spent, covered in other men's blood. He had done the impossible. He had turned the deadliest battlefield in the Pacific into a place of miracles. When his unit regrouped, something had changed. The same soldiers who mocked him now refused to move without him. They said, "We're not going up there unless Doss goes first." The unarmed medic had become their shield. Out to guardian aid. Even the commanding officers, men who once tried to court-martial him, stood in silent awe. Word spread through the ranks, through the Navy, all the way back to Washington. The U.S. Army had seen bravery before, but never like this. In October 1945, President Harry S. Truman stood before Desmond Doss, the humble medic who went to war without a weapon. As Truman placed the Medal of Honor around his neck, he said, "I consider this a greater honor than being president." Doss became the first conscientious objector to receive the Medal of Honor. But in his own words, he wasn't a hero. He said, "The real heroes are the ones who didn't come back." That humility, that quiet strength, is what makes his story unforgettable. Even after the war, Desmond Doss carried his scars, some visible, most hidden. He was wounded by a grenade, hit by snipers, and suffered from tuberculosis for years. Yet he never once regretted refusing to carry a gun. He lived quietly in rural Alabama, far from fame, growing vegetables, reading his Bible, and praying for peace. When Hollywood finally told his story in Hacksaw Ridge, millions wept. But those who knew him said, the real man was even stronger than the movie. Because Desmond Doss didn't need special effects. He had something greater, faith that conquered fear. In a world that glorifies violence, Desmond showed another path. He proved that you can be a soldier without hatred, that you can fight evil without firing a shot. That courage is not measured by bullets, but by the willingness to run toward the wounded when everyone else runs away. He didn't just save lives, he saved souls. He reminded us that faith, in its purest form, is not passive, it's power. Decades have passed since the guns fell silent on Okinawa, but if you stand on that ridge today, you can almost hear it. The echo of a medic's prayer whispered through time. Those words are etched in history, a symbol of selfless sacrifice, a reminder that true heroism needs no weapon, only conviction. Desmond Doss didn't just go to war, he went into hell and came back with 75 reasons for humanity to believe in hope again. So the next time you salute a flag, remember the man who defended it without ever pulling the trigger, the man who fought with compassion instead of hate, who proved that courage and kindness can coexist, even on the battlefield. Desmond Doss is gone now, but his story, it still marches on, because legends never die, they just trade their rifles for halos. This is what true bravery looks like. It's what honor sounds like, it's what America stands for. If this story moved you, hit that like button for the heroes who never came home, comment below one more to honor their memory, and subscribe to Veteran Diaries, because their stories deserve to be heard. For the brave, for the fallen, for freedom. This is the legacy of Corporal Desmond Doss, the man who went to war without a gun,